Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, July 25th. Man, the year is flying by. It's almost August. If you have not joined us before, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations to help them increase their sale. And I work with both professional salespeople and what I call the accidental seller, people who have to sell, but that's not really their main job, like coaches and consultants. I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales. And if you've joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception, my friend. Today's guest is the owner and the coach at Sales the Jen Way. I have a feeling I know why she named it that. Please welcome our guest, Jen Way. Good morning, Jen.
I have a feeling you're not going to be wrong about that guest. Good morning, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me out here today.
I'm excited to be speaking to you, and I have a bunch of questions that I want to ask you about selling in general. But can you maybe, before I do that, give us the 1 to 2 minute version of your background? What brought you up to this point?
Yeah, when I graduated from college, the economy crashed. So I was forced to reinvent myself and ran into a real estate investor and got very deep into that. So I did real estate for a very long time. We made a lot of money on the investment side right after the crash. You could really get some good deals. And about 2.5 years ago, I decided to go ahead and pivot and become a sales coach because I'm better equipped to just teach people how to do this. And let's be honest, at some point, we all want to not be the boots on the ground anymore. So about 2.5 years ago, I decided to start coaching sales instead of actually just being the salesperson on a real estate team.
And how did you get good at selling? I mean, you don't just wake up one day and go, you know what, I'm going to buy real estate and I'm going to sell real estate. I'm just a salesperson. How did you actually get good at it?
Trial and error, I think, like a lot of us. You and I are both coaching, but when I was, 20 years ago, when I was starting in the sales industry, there weren't a lot of just pay for programs where you could get all the answers, right? There weren't a lot of opportunities like that. So you had to rely on your employer or your, lead salesperson on the floor to actually teach you things. And so for me, it was just years and years of trial and error. I sold dog collars, electronic dog collars, the fencing. I've sold brand new Fords. I worked at a Ford dealership once, Verizon Fios internet, where you just show up at the house and knock on the door. So
I get those door knocks every couple of days.
Yes.
Even though I already have Verizon Fios.
Oh, they need to update their list. Anyways, so what I found is, and you're right, none of us who are good at sales just showed up good at sales, right? That's not how this works. So through relationship building, learning how to listen to people when they actually talk, needing to make money, so having to figure out how to sell things. And because of that, just a lot of trial and error. I think a lot of salespeople agree. It's always just really been about building relationships, figuring out what's going on, and becoming a solution to people's problems.
Gotcha. Now, you're all about what you call ditching the scripts. Can you talk about why do you feel that most sales scripts are ineffective, and what do you believe is a better approach?
I believe that a lot of scripts are great for the person who's never done a sales call before, because at least there's something for them to read, right? But the problem is that you stay so focused on these words in front of you that you're not actually listening when your lead is talking. That's my biggest problem with scripts, is that they'll ask a question, right? They kind of prompt you to ask a question. And then instead of listening and then asking a question based off what someone says, you listen for a second, but then you're worried about your next question. And so I think it keeps you too rigid, because the fact is, no two people are alike. The script is not going to work for every single person, because conversations take left-hand turns. And sometimes they slow down, and sometimes they speed up. I think a script just keeps you very rigid, very in a box. Like I said, you can't actually listen when people are talking. So instead, I think that we all need to learn how to formulate questions based off of what someone just said to us, right? We need to learn how that there's pockets of information that we need during our sales presentation or discovery call or whatever it might be. There's these pockets of information we need. And so knowing what your headlines are is really the replacement for the script. I know I need to hit this. I know I need to hit this, but in no particular order. I feel like sales is a flow chart, not a script.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, we all know that people have objections, for example, right? Every industry has its specific types of objections. So decision makers across all boards, no matter what you're selling, this is an easy one, right? When I ask somebody if we've got everybody here, and do I have everybody on the phone? Is everybody here? Are there other people that you're going to talk to about this decision? If they say, yes, there's other people, I don't keep going. I now want the whole team involved. And if it's a only person, or if I actually do have, both people walked onto the floor at the same time, they're both here, then okay, we can go ahead and keep talking. But if you're not both here, hard stop. I'm not doing a one-legged sales pitch. It's not going to happen. So I think things like that really matter. And that's why it's a flow chart, not a script. Because when you read your script and it tells you to ask about decision makers, it doesn't say hard stop, get all decision makers afterwards. It just has another question, right? So I think people who have not done this for a living or even for any amount of time don't understand that you can actually dig deeper. And a flow chart does that. Did you get the thing? No? Then do this to get the thing, right? It actually directs you to go in different directions in the conversation, which is just more natural.
Yeah, and I love what you said about listening. I find so many times salespeople, they're listening for when the other person stops talking so they can get out their next bit of brilliance instead of listening to really try to understand what the person is saying. And that's a huge mistake. I consider listening skills to one of the three most important skills any person can have, along with questioning skills and storytelling skills. You emphasize giving prospects permission to say no. I'm also a big fan of that, but why do you feel this is so important? And why do you believe that actually increases your chances of getting to a yes?
Because everybody on the phone is afraid of the exact same thing, the word no. Everybody's afraid to say it, right? If you're actually nice, your lead is going to be afraid to tell you no because they like you, right? And you're afraid to hear no because you think the point is to get yeses. But the point is to get a yes or a no and not having people in the middle, right? The better you are, the more likely you can guide to a yes. But if it's not going to be a yes, then you want the no, right? So for me, because everybody's so afraid of the word no, let's just get it out of the way. Let's just go ahead and say it first, get it out of the way. Because as soon as the person on the other side realizes that you're here to talk to them, to figure out what's going on and not just con them into buying something, like, oh, wait, I can tell a salesperson no? Wait a second. As soon as that happens, for me, the sales resistance brick wall comes down. Now they're actually willing to talk to you, right? They're actually willing to get into the harder parts of that conversation. If it's, something serious going on, you can really connect with someone now. Whereas before, that brick wall was stopping a genuine connection. So for me, it's about creating an open space where they can be honest, where they can tell me no if that's the answer, because honestly, that's better for me. If you're never going to buy the product, if you're never going to sell your house to me or whatever it is, then I kind of want you to tell me that faster rather than dragging it on, right?
Yes, 100% right. I'm with you 1,000,000%. I find so often salespeople don't want to hear no, and they're hearing it because, people don't always use the word no when they're saying no. They do things like not returning your calls, not returning your emails, not setting another appointment. And to me, that means no, at least for right now. May not mean no forever, but it means no for now. And when a salesperson is not hearing the word no and doesn't understand that all those other things also mean no. They keep chasing the same deals over and over. And that's when they're leaving messages like, hey, it's Jeff. I'm just following up on that proposal. Hey, it's Jeff. Just checking in again.
Yes.
And what those messages really mean is, hey, it's Jeff. Did you decide to do business with me, but forget to let me know, which they don't. When somebody wants to do business with you, they tend to let you know. And I'm just like you, Jen. Well, not just like you in every way, but certainly in this way. I love no. I don't like it as much as I love yes, but I love no. And like you, I make it very easy for people to say yes to me. And I make it just as easy to say no. What I do is make it challenging to say anything else. I got to talk to my partner. Look, I sold Encyclopedia Britannica for 8 years. I know exactly what you mean when you say we don't give a one-legged pitch. For those who don't know what that means, a one-legged pitch is if you're pitching to a family and you're talking to either the husband or the wife, but that when you talk to one or the other, it gives them a built-in excuse to say, well, I've got to talk to my wife, or I got to talk to my husband. So we never, ever gave a one-legged pitch because we knew we were inviting that very objection at the end, a stall. So, but it's chasing deals that are never going to come through because people are saying no. And like you said, they just don't want to hurt your feelings, because if we've done our job properly, we did get them to like us, because people want to do business with people that they like and trust and all that stuff. So exactly. I think salespeople absolutely need to get much better at going, no, thank you. I appreciate that. If you ever change your mind, please let me know. I'd love to do business with you. By the way, who do you know that might be interested in what I have to offer? Always ask for a referral. And then I'm going to leave skid marks in their driveway getting out so I can get to the next person who might say yes. Yeah?
Dead on. So good. And you know what I call those people in the middle? Hanging chads.
Well, you have to be of a certain age to understand what that means, but okay.
Yes.
I'm not going to waste the audience's time, the younger audience's time by explaining that, but just Google hanging chads. You've helped a lot of your students close a lot more deals than they were before. What do you think is the single most important mindset shift? Because when I'm coaching, I work, I'd say 60% on skills and techniques and 40% on mindset. What's the most important mindset shift that a salesperson needs to make in order to be successful in sales?
Number one, you are probably not your leads. So making assumptions for them, trying to decide what they think or what they're going to do, generally results in the wrong answer, because you're not usually your leads.
And Jen, when you say leads, you're talking about prospects, right?
Yeah, prospects.
Gotcha. Okay.
Leads, prospects, suspects. We all got different names for them.
Sure.
When you're talking to somebody who has approached you to buy your product or service, the fact is you're probably not the type of person that would just walk into the store like that, right? You're not going to, in real estate, you're probably not the person who's going to sell your house for a really low price. You're probably not them. So when you make any assumptions, right? Assuming the price is too high, assuming they're not ready yet, assuming that because they're standoffish, they might not be interested, right? You assume literally anything about this person, you're probably wrong, not right, because it's like me trying to say that I can think like a man. No, I can't. I'm thinking like a woman. Exactly. I'm thinking like a woman who's trying, right? You just can't. So you're probably going to guess wrong, which means you're going to be the reason you don't get a sale, right? You have to treat every single person that shows up as a blank slate. You have to ask all the questions. You have to assume nothing about people. Nothing. If they're dressed nice, cool. That's it. That's all it means. And if they're not, that's it. That's all it means. I had that one happen to me early on as a real estate agent. A very dirty farmer showed up and nobody wanted to talk to him. But I was brand new and I had no clients. So I gladly walked over to shake his hand. The man owned more real estate than I think maybe anybody who walked through the door in that entire month. He was a farmer. He had been working that day. That's it. So assume nothing. Everyone that shows up is a blank slate. Ask all the questions. That's, I think, the biggest one.
Yeah, I love that. I call that head, excuse me, head trash. We all have a little voice that's constantly talking to us, judging people, making assumptions.
Yep.
And I live in New York, and years and years ago, I wanted to get a nice gift for my stepfather for his birthday. And this was a million years ago. And I used to dress, this was in the days of disco. I used to, on a day off, I'd put on like a cutoff shirt and, a bandana around my head and stuff like that.
Oh, I need a picture of that.
Oh, I've seen pictures from those days. It was not pretty, but at the time it was appropriate. But I went into Tiffany's because I wanted to buy, was it Tiffany's? Either Tiffany's or Cartier, one of those stores, because I wanted to buy him a really nice wallet. And I had plenty of money in my pocket. And I walked up to the counter and, a very snooty New York saleswoman treated me like garbage. And I walked out. Now, I had plenty of money to buy whatever. I could have bought him $1,000 wallet if I wanted to. I was looking to spend $300 or $400. But she assumed, because of the way I was dressed and because I was young, that I had no money. Stupid.
Yep.
I don't know how old you are, Jen, but you're way younger than me. But there used to be a show called The Odd Couple. And there's a famous scene in The Odd Couple where the two stars are in a courtroom. And at one point, one of the stars is interrogating a witness. And she says, well, I assume something. And goes, aha. And he goes to a board and he writes assume. He goes, do you know what assume means? When you assume, you make an ass of you and me. So I think that's exactly what you're saying here. Let's not assume anything because you never know. If you met my ex-father-in-law, he looks like he's broke. I mean, he dresses poorly. He drives a beat up old car. I'm not counting his money, but the man's worth multi-millions. He's my ex-father-in-law, so I'm not getting any of that money, but I know the man's worth more. You would never, ever in a million years think that this guy, to my realist, if this guy walked in to buy real estate from you, you wouldn't do this, but most salespeople would look at him and go, this guy doesn't have a pot to piss in. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I love that, Jen. Don't assume. In your experience, what's the biggest mistake that salespeople make when they're trying to close a deal, and how can they avoid it?
People pleasing. I think that I see a lot of people who are trying to be customer service reps, but they're salespeople, right? And so they're trying to take on the stress and anxiety of the lead to make the deal work. But in reality, the way to best serve people is with the deal that's actually going to work, right? So, I guess it's hard to like generalize that if you're just, instead of just automatically giving someone a discount, right? How about asking what the impact of having the thing is going to be? Actually build the value of the purchase up so that they'll see why it's priced where it is, right? For me in real estate, I see it, so many of them just agree to a higher price, one they don't think can work, but they're too stressed. It's too hard to tell the lead, I can't pay that price. And so they just wait until right before closing. And then it's that putting together a sale that is actually the right thing, instead of just agreeing to what you're being told needs to happen in order to get the deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I know you work with other areas, but I know your main focus is real estate, which means I'm assuming that you're pretty darn good at negotiating. Any tips on being a more effective negotiator?
I would say make sure that people understand the value of your product before you have to negotiate. That's what stops you from having to negotiate, right? And when somebody is trying to negotiate a price, and that's across all industries, right? For me, it's always been about, if I know why, not just their silly little motivation, but if I know why they need this or they want this, then that's the direct connection to the price, right? If it's a problem that they have, the price is not just a check, it's actually a solution to the problem. So being able to position everything with the solution or the path to where they want to be, right? Everybody's running from pain or towards pleasure. So identifying which one of them it is and then attaching it to the price, right, for their situation, stops you from really having to negotiate at all. But what I say is that when somebody does question the price, I immediately ask them something to the effect of, well, hey, is that $3,000 actually going to stop us from solving your problem here today? And I, again, directly correlate it to the thing they want or the problem that they have, and make it very real. I would say that when you're negotiating, if you're not being very direct and very candid with the person you're talking to, then you're definitely doing it wrong.
Yeah, I love that. There's a fantastic book. It's one of my very favorite books on sales in the last probably 10 years, called The Transparency Sale, written by a friend of mine, Todd Capone. And he talks exactly about that, called Transparent Negotiating. In fact, I think he's got a new book coming out specifically about negotiating. But he says the same thing, be open and honest. Here's what I want. Here's what you want. Let's see if we may be closer than we thought. I know that for me, I don't negotiate. When I give somebody my price, that's my price. You like it, great. You don't, that's okay too. But to me, the number one rule in negotiating, if you're going to, is if you give something up, you get something back.
Oh, absolutely.
So if
100%.
I'm going to give you a better price, I want a longer engagement or something like that.
Exactly.
Too often, I think salespeople go into a negotiation to try to crush the other person.
Yeah.
In a real estate deal, I guess that might be okay, because often that's a one-time sale. But if you're in any type of a service like you and me, I want long-term engagements with my clients. If I crush somebody in a negotiation, I might get a deal once, but they're probably never going to want to do business with me again. So to me, it's how do I create a win for me and a win for you so that it works for both of us? You also have to know at some point, what's your walkaway point if you're going to negotiate? And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's if the deal's 1 penny less, I can't take it. For me, that's my asking price. But I understand that I own my own company. I can do whatever I want, and I just choose to not negotiate. My belief is I price myself fairly. When I give you my number, I believe it's exactly the right number. I believe I could charge more, but I charge what I believe you're going to get this much value out of everything. And if you don't want that much value, let's change the deal. You want to pay me less? Great, but you're not getting the same thing I offered you. If I offered you something for $50,000, you want to pay me $40,000. I can't give you $50,000 worth of value for $40,000. I can give you $40,000. But so many times, I think people are just trying to crush each other, and they're not being. I love what you said. Just be honest. Here's what I'm looking for. What are you looking for? Let's see if we can come together. There's something else I wanted to ask you about. And,
well, real quick, this brings up. This is something I tell people all the time. That old saying, if both parties walk away a little unhappy, it was a good negotiation. I have always hated that.
Yeah.
I don't know why both of us can't walk away happy.
I actually want the other person to be happy. I'm going to give you an example.
Yes.
When my ex-wife and I bought our first house together, the first thing we did was replaced all the windows. I didn't do that, but we hired a guy, and I brought in 3 different companies to come in and give me estimates. And the first guy gave me an estimate. Then the second 2, I showed them his estimate, and they both said, there is absolutely positively no way this guy can give you this price. If you can actually get it for this price, don't buy from me, buy from him, because he's losing money on this deal. Okay, so I call the guy back and I say, hey, look, man, I like you very much. I got your price. It is by far the best price. 2 other companies told me you're losing money on this deal. Could you just check your numbers and get back to me and tell me? I mean, if you can do it for this price, let's go forward. He calls me back an hour later, goes, Mr. Goldberg, I have to admit, I made a mistake in my math. I am going to lose money on this deal, but I'm a man of my word, and if you want to move forward, I will install the windows at that price, which I thought was phenomenal, exactly the right thing to say. But what I said was, no, I want you to rework your numbers, and I want you to make some money. I don't want you to retire on me. I don't want you to send your kids to college on me, but you're entitled to make a living. And if I have a problem with a window a year from now, when I call you, I don't want to have you going, shit, I lost money on the deal. Now I got to go back and fix it. To me, it's about doing the right thing, and you have to take into account you might need service later. Look, I just got a new car delivered last Friday. I beat up the guy pretty good on price. I believe he's making money on the deal. Nobody gives you something for nothing. And I wanted him to make some money. But again, I didn't want him to retire. I believe I got a fair deal. And I think it's also worth mentioning, this is the 4th car I bought from this guy. And it's because I do trust him.
There you go. Exactly.
When he says, I'm giving you the best deal I possibly can. Now, he might be ripping me off, although he's not. I've checked with a couple other dealerships. But, there's great value in being honest and upfront so that people can trust you, because you and I and salespeople in general, not us in particular, but we have a bad reputation for being slimy scumbags who are sleazeballs and will do and say anything to rip people off and line their own pockets. There certainly are some salespeople like that, but I don't think it's most. And people like you and I who are honest we suffer from that. So if we start
Yeah.
acting in ways that leads people to believe, oh, we're just like every other salesperson. We're I'm just trying to reach my hand into your pocket and take out those green pieces of paper with pictures of dead presidents on them. When we act like that, we get lumped in the same. But when we do what you said, for example, listen to people, we start setting ourselves apart. And that's when people do business with us. What about emotional intelligence? First of all, could you define it for people? Because I think people have different definitions. What is it? What role does it play in sales? And how can sellers leverage it effectively?
I want to touch on one quick, like just add a little,
yeah, sure.
Just a little sprinkle on the cake you just baked.
This is your interview. Say whatever you like.
For me, everything you just said can be summed up in the most important thing for me every single day of my life is to be able to lay my head down at the end of the night and fall asleep. That's it. So just do the right thing, guys. It's actually pretty easy.
I say the same thing. After my dog and my 3 children, the most important thing in my life is my integrity.
Exactly.
There's a great a movie called Scarface, in which Al Pacino, who's brilliant in it, says, all I have in life is my word and my balls, and I don't break either for anybody. And that's what I believe too. And what you said is, look, I was a scumbag lying thief until I turned 30, and I made a decision. I'm never, ever, ever going to lie again to make money or to get involved with a woman, if you get what I'm saying.
I thought that's what you meant.
Well, I was a sleazeball, and I made a decision not to do that. And that sticks with me. Like you, it's more important to me that when I lay my head on my pillow at night, my conscience is clear than making a couple of extra bucks at somebody else's expense. It just doesn't work for me.
They're going to call and cancel on you anyways, guys. All right? No matter what you think you just negotiated and you got the deal of a lifetime and you went to happy hour because you got a signature on this, they're probably going to call and cancel anyways. It ends up being a waste of your time to be like that anyway, right? That's how you get the highest cancellation rate too. So
you could get a deal closed, but you're going to get a bad reputation when they figure it out. Even if they don't cancel, it's going to get around. And my experiences is when people are happy, they tell 3 people. When they're upset, they tell hundreds. And today with social media, it's too easy to blast. It's so easy to get a bad reputation, and it costs nothing, to be honest.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. So what about
emotional intelligence. So, man, nobody's ever asked me to actually define it before, but I think that what it is being able to recognize and use emotional components of being a human to accomplish your goal, right? And not letting your emotions control you, but you're controlling the emotions, right? So an easy one for me in sales is when I ask people questions, it wouldn't just be like, well, Jeff, why are you even considering? It's more like this. Jeff, why are you even considering? Crank up the curiosity, right? Actually really focusing in and honing in on the emotional parts of these conversations, sitting in them, not being afraid of them. So if somebody's struggling through something, talk to them about it. Instead of going, well, this is too intrusive, I can't possibly ask. People just want to talk to people, right? And I do believe that AI employees are actually helping people like me and you who know how to have conversations, because a lot of the population does not want to talk to a robot on the phone when it comes to sales. Maybe customer service, maybe troubleshooting, right? But when it comes to buying and selling things, an exchange of money like that, AI employees are making them want to talk to us.
Yeah.
So I really don't believe that an AI employee is ever going to be as good as a human. Not even ChatGPT thinks that an AI employee is ever going to be good as I asked it. I said, hey, are you going to replace me? Right? And it said no, because the best salespeople know how to leverage relationships and build emotional connections. And a robot will never do it as well as a human. So I think it's the idea that you don't let your emotions dictate you. You actually use them. You almost control them. But you actually leverage them during conversation to get where you want to be.
I think it's also paying attention to the other person's emotions.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not just your own, but paying attention. Where are they at? What type of buyer are they? Paying attention to that kind of stuff makes you more able to relate to who they are and where they are, because not everybody's the same. People buy differently, and people are different humans. So we have to take into account the different types. The one thing I argue against is I once took a job selling timeshares. I was horrible at it. It's the only sales job I've ever failed at. 2 months, didn't make a single sale because I didn't really, I believe we were ripping people off. The leads were horrible. It was just atrocious. But one of the things they taught us, there are 4 different types of buyers. You know, the engineer, you know, the person who's very analytical, and the person, 4 different types. And what they suggested was you have to shift your personality to talk to each of those 4 different types. My thinking is I'm not shifting my personality for anything, because if I do, I'm going to come across as disingenuous. Yeah. If you like Jeff, it's because I'm real. If you don't like me, that's okay too. I don't need everybody to like me. I want everybody to like me. I want that kitty to like me, but I don't care. No, I care about. I don't care if you like me, but I care if the kitty, because I want all animals to love me. But yeah, I'd rather just be me, because again, you know, if people do business with people they like, when you're being disingenuous, it's going to come through. And they're not going to like you.
Absolutely. Being authentic is day one of what I teach. I mean,
who you are.
It might be the first thing I ever tell people, right? You need to be so you that's why you've been set apart, because you're so you. And the authenticness in your voice is going to make people want to work with you.
Yeah.
Like,
go ahead.
I mean, it's just incredible, right? I tell them, don't repeat the words that I say. Write them in your voice and then use them, right?
Yep.
Because, and this goes way back to the earlier part of the conversation, this is how you get people to in or out, yes or no, right? When you are the most you, people are pretty quickly going to be like, I would like to walk this way, or I would like to go the other way. And that's exactly the point, right?
Yeah.
Yes, be you, 100%. Be the most authentic. There's actually a picture of me with my cow. She's like looking up into the sky, and my head is right next to her. And I put on it, be yourself unapologetically. And I share that, and I post that all the time, because it is so critical.
And please send me that picture. I want to see that, you and your cow.
I will. And for me, like I said, AI is creating a situation where those of us that are like this are gonna start getting more attention, right? People are gonna want to talk to us more and more and more as all these businesses start just sending people to robots.
Yeah. And by the way, when you said, you know, people might not mind chatting with a robot for customer service, I do. I hate chatting.
Too. Yeah.
I do everything I possibly can to get to a real human being as quickly as possible, because, you know, too often the answers are too general, and it just doesn't work. The other thing that popped up when you said just be you was, gee, if I'm really me, I'm a guy who likes to use foul language all the time. I'm not sure that's going to work on a sales call with everybody. So I don't swear. Although what popped into my mind also is I did an interview with a guy. I don't know if you've ever heard of Keenan. I forgot the name of the book he wrote, but he's pretty damn well known. And in the pre-interview that I did, he's swearing up a storm. I said, Keenan, are you planning on doing that in the interview? He goes, oh yeah, I do it all the time. Even when I'm working. I'm like, wait a minute. You are a sales trainer standing in front of corporate audiences and you're using the F word and all that stuff. He goes, dude, it's in my contract. It says I'm going to do it. Now, you know, I saw the brilliance in that, because he's going to attract an audience that likes that. My concern was it's like saying I love Donald Trump or I hate Donald Trump. You're turning off half the potential audience.
Yep.
You know, and I have an opinion one way or the other on that, but you're risking it. So I'm not sure whether Keenan is brilliant or an idiot, but it's working for him. I'm not sure I'm going to go sit down with prospect and say, well, if we effing do this, it'll be a good idea, because that is how I normally talk. But I'm going to hold that back a little bit. Did you have like one tip? What's something sellers can do today, right now, to increase their sales numbers?
You know, I think one of the most useful, and this is like actually during your conversation, speak like this. Something that has worked for me across the board is a tactic called RRR. So when someone's talking, I've heard this be called mirroring before too. When someone's talking and you get an answer that's kind of just surface level, right? But you need to get more information out of them. Here's what I want you to do. Repeat literally what they just said. That's the first R, repeat. Relate to the information in some fashion. This could be, I've had plenty of other people like you that I've helped, or, oh no, that sounds terrible, or, oh wow, that's incredible. Like, relate to it, right?
So you're showing you're listening.
Yep. So you repeated it and then you relate to it and then you resume. Repeat, relate, resume. Resume with a question. That's what resume always stands for. Ask another question. And so if it's a topic that you need more information on, we're going to ask a next level down question, right? We're going to start digging. And if it's something that we have the information we need, bam, we pivot directly to the next thing we need. Maybe a decision maker or a timeline or a, right? Maybe get some of those objections brought up, whatever, wherever you need to go, you instantly go there with the question. RRR, repeat, relate, resume. This is the number one way for people to realize you're actually listening to them.
And that makes people feel special and like you when you listen to them, because so often all we want to do is talk. We salespeople think we get paid to talk. You and I get paid to talk, but not when we're selling. When we're selling, nope. We get paid to ask questions and listen. And that brings up my next question, which is something I'm passionate about, and I couldn't wait to ask you this. How can we leverage silence in our conversations, and why is that so important?
Oh my goodness, what a good one. I kind of say it funny, and I'd be like Bane from Batman, and like thrive in the darkness, but it's silence, guys. All right. So for me, silence is an incredibly powerful tool to make somebody uncomfortable, right? In those moments where the rubber meets the road, staying silent will win that part of the conversation for you. Okay. So an easy place to do this, right after you drop a price. He who speaks first loses. Okay. So whether it's the price of the product or the price you're going to give them for the thing you're trying to buy, whatever it is, as soon as you drop that price, shut your mouth. Now, if you're like me, that's very, very hard. So guys, pro tip, literally cover your mouth with your hand if you have to. Okay? Be conscious of this. Do not talk. What you're going to realize is that sitting in that silence, the other person is going to end up talking themselves into it if you just sit still. Okay?
Yeah.
Because if you talk in this moment, it's going to feel like desperation. Just stay firm. And Jeff, I'm just like you with my coaching. There's no discounts available unless it's the 4th of July or something, right? It's like
not even that day for me, but okay.
Yeah, I do. Whatever. So the price is the price, right? So I know it's not changing. That's an easy way for me to stay silent because there's nothing to talk about except for your yes or your no, right? You're in or you're out.
Bingo.
But for a lot of industries, we do, like when I was in car sales, I had flexibility. I did, right? The dealership wanted it at the highest price. Of course they did. And so did I, because that's how I made more commission. But I had some flexibility. The more I stayed silent, the less add-ons I had to give. If I talked too soon, they were getting tinted windows and rubber floor mats and right? If I talked, because that's what they hear. When you sit still and confident, they don't think they can get anything more. This is it. Take it or leave it.
Somebody's going to break the silence. And I agree with you. In the old days, and when I say old days, I'm talking about pre-COVID. One of the things I used to do is I'd go into the field on sales call with salespeople and coach them afterwards on the spot. So all I would do is be observing. They'd introduce me. This is Jeff. He's in training, which is true. I am a trainer. So because I always never lie. And all I would do is the only thing I would say is nice to meet you when we would walk in, and nice meeting you when we would walk out. If a prospect would turn to me and say, well, what do you think, Jeff? I'd go, well, what do you think, Jen? Because it wasn't my job to close the deal. I'm just observing. But so many times I would find a salesperson would ask for the sale, try to close. And then if the prospect didn't answer immediately, they jump with, well, maybe I can do a little bit better on the price.
Yep.
Instead of just waiting. And I've told the story a million times, but I still remember there was a guy I was in his office. He owns a commercial moving and storage company, and he wanted me to teach his people how to cold call. And we met a couple of times, and we were in the final meeting, going over my proposal, asked him for the sale. And this was a big hulking guy, huge, ex-football player, and when I gave him the number and asked him for the order, he had a look on his face like he wanted to kill me. Like he looked like he was truly angry. And I just sat there and, in hindsight, it felt like I sat there for 20 minutes in silence while he stared at me angrily. And no kidding, sweat was literally dripping down my back and under my armpits. And I just stayed silent. Now, it felt like 20 minutes. Maybe at the most it was 2, which is a very long time to be quiet. But the point is, at the end of the 2 minutes, he went like this. Okay, let's do it. He was using a technique on me. He was negotiating with me, waiting for me to break and go, maybe I can do a little bit better. I don't break because my feeling is I am giving you the right price. And if you don't like it, not a problem. In fact, I actually offer to introduce people to some of my local competitors who work less expensively than me. And they're very good at what they do. They're not me, but they're very good at what they do. And I will actually tell a prospect that has a price complaint, let me introduce you to my friend. I'm not going to name names, but let me introduce them to this guy or that lady. They work less expensively and they're very good. Because I'm not dropping my price. I'm just not.
I think that you just said something that deserves a highlight. Guys, if you give people the fair offer and you're not trying to lowball and you're not trying to steal it, right? And you're not trying to make too much money. If you give people a fair offer, it's going to be easier to stay silent. It's going to be easier to remain confident because it's fair, right?
Yep.
It's the value of just making the right presentation is so understated. I mean, just vastly understated. With the students that I work with, one of the things that we do, right? We got to find the right solution for people who want to sell their property. That's not always a straight cash offer. And that's right in this vein, right? If somebody can give me more time, I can give them a higher price. It's up to me to get that information during the call so that I know which one of these to actually present to them. But when it's fair and actually the right thing for the person you're talking to, it becomes enormously easy to sit still because you're being fair.
Yeah. I don't know what the market's like where you are, but here on Long Island, the real estate market is just insane. I mean, people are getting way, way over asking and things go like this. So, the negotiations are hard, but, it's pretty easy for sellers today go, sorry, no, I've got 5 other offers that are higher than my asking price. Why would I take your low ball unless there's some really good reason? How can we control? I believe that somebody's going to control every sales conversation. It's either going to be you or the prospect. And obviously, like me, I'm assuming you believe it should be us. I have zero problem with my prospect asking questions and leading us in another direction, but I got to bring it back. So how can we control a conversation without being controlling?
The RRR that I actually brought up already is the simplest way to do this because it's just constantly asking more questions, but that's the key of it, right?
Yeah, that's the key to me.
The key
Whoever's
of it.
asking the questions is controlling the conversation.
Exactly. Whoever's asking the questions. So if you want to control the conversation, focus on talking 15 or 20% of the time and 90% of the words coming out of your mouth are part of a question. That's it, right? That's how you control the conversation. You just keep asking questions because people just want to talk. So let them.
Well,
there's a line, right?
If you establish rapport with them and make friends up front, then they're willing to have a conversation with you. Where I think people often get into trouble is the way most people sell, not you and me, and I'm sure not the way you teach, but hey, Jen, really great to meet with you today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you're very busy. I'm going to get right to the point. Let me tell you why my company is the company you should be using, blah, blah, blah.
Nope. I encourage everybody to stop answering the phone with their business name at this point. Hello, this is Jen. That's it.
That's what I say. Well, not Jen, but hi, this is Jeff.
You say Jen.
That would be fine.
Yes.
Maybe I'll try that from now on.
I'll be Jeff for a day. You be Jen for a day. Yes, because guys, I am just a Jen. All right. I'm not sales the Jen way, even though I have the punniest name on the planet. I could probably get away with doing that because it's funny, right? And it'll shock people when they call, but I don't because I'm just a Jen. I'm just Jen. I'm just here to find out what's going on and see if I'm the person that's going to be able to help you. And if not, that's okay. We can still be friends. Just Jen. Drop the corporate attitude. Drop the scripting, right? That's the other part that makes you sound like a salesperson. When you're reading the same thing that every other investor or every other person on the car lot or every other solar salesman or every other, if you're all reading the exact same thing, then you are all just a bunch of New York City salesmen.
Just Jen.
I'm just Jen. Just be Jen.
I don't know if you've ever seen the show Will and Grace,
yes.
but just Jack.
Yes, just Jack. Oh man, now I'm gonna have to steal that one. All right.
Feel free to use that. What about prospecting? Any tips for prospecting today? My experience is that the number one challenge every salesperson I meet and every sales organization I walk into is they are simply not meeting with enough prospects. And it's because we don't want to prospect. Nobody likes cold calling. Nobody, it's hard. So any tips, anything that you find is working well today? Anything that you think we should be doing?
I'm a big fan of the 7 rules of marketing. And one of those is that you don't reinvent it. Guys, just figure out who's talking to a whole bunch of leads and duplicate whatever it is that they're doing. I'm a big fan, right? I think each industry has its places. So for you and I as coaches, my leads aren't sitting on TikTok necessarily, right? So I'm not going to go and push my content there, but they are sitting on Facebook. So know your product, actually understand what your demographic is or your avatar. Who are you looking for? And then just find somebody who's figured it out and replicate that. If I was going to start a fast food restaurant right now, I'll tell you what I would do. I would just find out what McDonald's marketing plan is and I would repeat it. That's it, right? I would just exactly the same thing they're doing, but with my brand colors instead, right? And don't be afraid to just really almost when I'm talking to people, I'm instantly qualifying them, but they don't know it, right? So don't be afraid to ask some of those, maybe harder, maybe you've never asked somebody as directly as that. Don't be afraid to do this a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love what you said about my people aren't on TikTok. They're on Facebook. I happen to love TikTok. I wish I never saw it because it's addictive, but I'm not on there either, although maybe I should be. But I'm on LinkedIn because that's absolutely where my prospects are hanging out. VPs of sales, presidents, CEOs, sales managers, salespeople, accidentals. Everybody's on LinkedIn. I forgot that it's over, I think 2 billion people are on LinkedIn, some insane number. And I get a third of my business from LinkedIn. And by the way, it's from people reaching out to me. Not me reaching out to them saying, hey, want to buy some sales training or sales coaching. I'm posting content 5 days a week. And my content is almost never a sales pitch, although recently there have been some because I've come up with a new program for accidental salespeople. But mostly it's just me giving the same advice that I charge people for every single day because that's how you build a following. And that's what I'm looking for. I want a bunch of people who want to see my content every day, because some of those people reach out to me and say, hey, Jeff, I'm interested in talking to you about this, that, or the other thing. I call that people who are raising their hand. It's far easier to sell to somebody who's raised their hand and said, I want to talk to you about what you have to offer, than us reaching out cold. And I'm not saying we shouldn't reach out cold. For many industries and many salespeople, that's exactly what you need to be doing. I just personally hate doing that. I built my business on cold calling, but I got away from it as quickly as I possibly could because I love teaching it. I just hate doing it. And again, look, can you reach people through a cold call? You can. Will you eventually find somebody who need what you've got? Yes, you will, if you make enough calls and do it well. But I'd rather have people, my phone ringing all day long, or my inbox blowing up with people saying, need to talk to you about this, that, or the other thing. I'm all about, how do I make my sales life as easy as I possibly can, given that sales is not an easy gig. And one of the things I always say is, it's probably easier than digging ditches in the hot sun, but I wouldn't know because I've never dug ditches in the hot sun. Although living where you live, maybe you have.
I have.
So which is harder, sales or digging ditches in a hot sun?
Well, since I'm 5'3" and about 115 pounds, digging holes.
Gotcha.
that's harder for me.
Yeah.
But I absolutely 100% inbound versus outbound is always going to be better. The industry might, the industry affects this. Sometimes you can't avoid cold calls, right? But I would say with cold calls is, guys, don't try to, when you're prospecting that way, don't try to just keep people on the phone, because that's the highest volume. So you kind of need to be qualifying fast.
Yeah.
Because you're going to talk to 500 before you get one or something.
How
right?
about just being upfront?
Just be upfront with it. This is who I am.
I work with companies like yours to help them increase sales. Should we talk?
Yeah. Do you want to hang up on me, or can we have a call? Or, can we talk a little bit?
I actually like permission-based marketing. There's a guy, Jason Bay, who I think is brilliant. I learned this from a couple of years ago. He's
I know
young
that.
guy, really. He's my go-to guy. And look, I know a lot about this stuff, but I read everything he puts out. And it's simply, hey, Jen, I'm sure I caught you at a busy time, but if you have just 30 seconds, I'll explain why I'm calling you. At the end of 30 seconds, if you want to get off the phone, we'll hang up and still be friends. 30 seconds, Jen, is that fair? Jen, I'm assuming that, like me, you're a very busy person, but if somebody calls me and asks for 30 seconds, I almost always have 30 seconds. 10 minutes, I don't have, but 30 seconds. But now you better get to the point very quickly in that 30 seconds and tell me what you've got for me, and help me to see why I should give you another 30 seconds or another 5 minutes, or set a meeting with you to give you 30 minutes or an hour or more. Get to the point. Stop wasting time. So often salespeople waste time with useless stuff. Like, here's my favorite one. Hey, Jen, how are you today? First of all, I know who you are when you call me and ask me how I am today, because only two people ask that question. One is my mother, and I know you're not my mother, and the other is a salesperson. I already know you're a salesperson. You don't care how I am. Look, I don't care how they are today. As a human being, I care how everybody is, but I didn't call you to find out how you are today. To me, there's only one purpose of an appointment-making call, and that's make an appointment. So let's get to the point. Why waste time? And the quicker you get to the point, you either get somebody to agree to the appointment or not. Now you can move on to your next one. Like you said before, we need to speak to lots and lots of people, because not everybody's going to buy. I wanted to cover another topic, and I keep glancing over because we're quickly running out of time. Most sellers struggle with objections. They hate them with a passion, and they think as soon as I've got an objection, I'm dead in the water, or they argue. But you believe we can actually overcome objections before they even come up, and I love the sound of that. How do we do that?
So when I was a young child, I know I have a set of headphones on right now, so you can't see them, but my ears stick right off the side of my head. I'm that girl. Kind
of like mine.
And they
used to be worse. I'm not quite Obama, but they used to be.
Oh, I'm Obama.
Okay.
So when I was young, I used to get teased about it, right? And the day I realized that when I showed up and called myself Yoda, it was now my conversation, was the day I realized that harnessing the power of what we feel are negative things, owning it and making it yours, meant that it wasn't going to be a problem for you anymore, right? So I just started, Yoda. I'm actually the spawn of Yoda, ha ha ha, right? Don't let me go outside when the wind blows. I mean, Just all of them. Just made fun of myself. Nobody else got to make fun of me anymore.
So you're saying bring up the objections before they do. A lot of people
Front,
tell me that this, that, and the other thing, here's why it's not true or whatever. Yes?
I mean, you could do it that way. I like to just ask questions. So it's called front loading objections. Front load your objections. I'm going to use decision maker again because every single industry has it. Decision makers and timeline, I think, are both. I don't care what you're doing. These are objections that people are going to try and use. I don't think it's the right time for me, or I need to talk to my wife or husband. Common that we hear at the end of the call. So get them off the table so they can't use them later. Ask about decision makers. Ask about timeline. And in whatever industry you're in, there's going to be other very common ones, right? You're going to hear the same objections over and over. Now it's your job to formulate a question that comes up earlier in your conversation that addresses it. Get it off the table, because what you want is at the end of that conversation, when you're about to make your offer, when you're about to pitch or drop your price, there needs to be one thing left. That's it. One thing left. Price. That's it. There is no other reason that they're going to say no. The only thing you don't know yet is how they truly feel about the exact price. That should be the only thing you don't have a sure answer on yet. All right. So front load them, get them off the table. Because if I go to pitch you and I drop my price or drop the offer and you tell me that you need to talk to your husband, well, I asked you specific, right? So what's changed between 5 minutes ago and right now? Right.
Yeah.
So
the other thing I find is that quite often I've seen salespeople will get an objection during the sales process and they'll say something, let's put a pin in that and we'll deal with that later on. And they're thinking that if I don't deal with it now, they're going to forget about it, which they never do. My advice is if you get an objection during the sales process, deal with it right then and there, because if it's killing the deal, I'd rather know sooner rather than later. I have no time to waste, and neither do we, because it looks like we're out of time. But before we go, I'm going to share my screen. Jen, would you tell people how can they reach you in case they're interested in your coaching or any of the services that you offer?
You know, the best place to reach me is on Facebook. Sales the Jen Way. Jeff's LinkedIn. I'm a Facebook, but he's right about LinkedIn, and I'm headed there soon. So Sales the Jen Way. Like I said, my name is so unique. You're probably going to be able to find me, guys. I'm definitely the only sales coach named Jen Way. I can assure you of that. Or my website, salesthejenway.com. Everything is based off my name here. Now, listen, here's what I want to tell you. If you think I can help you at all, I don't want you to fill out a form on my website. I don't want you to stalk me on the internet. I want you to pick up your phone and call or text me immediately. Okay? My phone number is plastered all over all those pages.
Would you like to give it out?
Yeah, sure. 786-390-9037. Call or text me directly. Let's talk about what you're dealing with. See if I'm the right person to help you out. And if not, maybe I got some friends that might be a better fit for you. I'm exactly the same way to that, right? I want to know that every single person that pays me is in the right place and going to get where they need to be. So if you think I can help even a little bit, just call or text me. Let me know. Check out the Facebook page. Lots of great content on there, videos about how to actually do this. I am a real estate specific coach. So obviously best fit for me. But guys, here's the thing. Like Jeff, we know a lot of coaches. I know people in all the different areas. So if you like what you're hearing, you think I may be able to help you out, even if we got to connect you up with one of the friends, just give me a call.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us so generously. And I will end as I always do. Gang, please remember, sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Jen. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff.